Man, I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
It took a while to coordinate it. You know, you're a hard guy to pin down. You travel a lot.
I do.
Life is a little crazier then. I think it's a little more settled for you somewhat, right?
They get out of the box, you're going to walk around a little bit. So
fair enough.
I'm out of the box.
So a bunch of stuff I want to talk about, Colin. But first off, how about this? So what's up with the balloons, man? Like, what is this shit in the sky that keeps coming that they won't tell us what it is? I mean, what is your opinion? What's your opinion on it?
I'm not too sure what it was. I was on a cruise when it all came out, so I wasn't all over the news. I didn't see what they had on the news. I just was reading what I could read on social media about it, and you take that and minus 500 and you still get 2. So my opinion on the balloon is we have satellites. We have satellites that have been doing the same shit. Why are we acting like it's the 13th century and thinking balloons are going to pick up more than what satellites every country has or has access to? So they're making a big deal about flying over military installations, and satellites have been staring at our military installations.
Right.
So, I mean, I'd like to see what comes out of it. I mean, I really don't know. I don't know enough on the subject to speak. But do I think they need to be flying over our country? No. I mean, if me and you was out there with a drone and we were flying around video whatever we want and we got too high, chances are we are getting a little bit of trouble. So probably. I mean, why are we going to let this thing go clear across the United States before we do anything about it? But I understand the concept, get it over waters, preserve whatever data we can get without it crashing to the earth, save American lives. But
they just keep coming. My question is, have they always kind of been there? We just now, it's an issue now?
It's the first I've heard of it. So, I mean, if they've always been there, I didn't know about it.
Yeah, like anybody did.
Right.
But it's funny how we've uncovered, like, I think today they shot the 4th one down.
Right, I've heard that.
Like, so, I mean, and then, of course, you know, the information that the public has to be, I'm sure, carefully disseminated.
Right.
But the frustration is now we're not getting any, the news is telling us we're not getting any answers.
Well, I mean, isn't that the last 10 years? We don't really get any answers out of anybody.
Touche.
But look, I look at it like this. We made a big deal when the Patriots head coach was supposed to be cheating, but if he just got caught. So is this the first time somebody actually seen the balloon? And, so who knows?
I just think it's just fascinating because when they don't tap down, when the government does not tap down rumors and does not tap down potentialities, they fester, especially after 2020. Everything's off the table now, right?
Yeah.
Half the society believes aliens exist. I might be included in that. I don't know. But when they don't tap down the fact that it's not aliens, we can't tell you exactly what it is yet, but don't panic. It's not alien. When they don't do that, of course people are going to speculate and go nuts.
Right. I mean, they still think Damar Hamlin's a ghost walking around here. So
I just saw that today, man. And it's like I was listening to the local station, The Fan. They were having a field day with it. It just, we live in a cartoon land. Wouldn't you agree? This is a cartoon.
Definitely. We are living in a caricature of a world we used to know. I promise you that.
All right, I want to unwind some things. You went to Moon High School. You graduated in 93, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you entered the military about a year after that? Is that correct?
Yep.
Roughly?
Roughly.
Okay.
95, I left, got on a boat, sailed over to my basic training.
Okay, and where was your basic training?
Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay, so there's the Georgia connection. Okay, and now explain to me how that works. You through our prior conversations, you mentioned it was a different kind of enlistment. You had flexibility there?
Well, yeah. I entered in a delayed entry, so I don't know enough about how the recruiters do it anymore. When I joined with, I think, up to 12 months, I believe. I signed the papers, went in a delayed entry program where I'm supposed to go play paintball with everybody and learn things. All my recruiter did was take us to go get drunk. But not really having any intention of truly joining, right? Because I signed up in high school to see the recruiter, and I never went. So
there's a story. But hold on, there's a story there. Yeah, there was a story there about your recruiter, right?
I'd signed up in the library to see the recruiter just to get out of class. I went to
There had to be easier ways.
rather than going to the library to see this guy, I skipped class. It was just a reason to get out of school. And little did I know, after I graduated, this guy was going to be knocking on my door every week because I missed his little appointment. He was a National Guard or Reserve recruiter, which I wasn't very familiar with how that all works. But I tried to tell him, look, I have diabetes. I can't. I have flat feet. I told him everything I could possibly tell him. Like, I'm not joining the Army. And then finally, my stepdad was like, tell him if you're gonna join the Army, you're gonna do it right and go active duty. Because his sister was military, so he knew active duty, reserve, and National Guard components are separate.
Okay.
So I told him that, and a week later, the active duty recruiter showed up and convinced me to go.
Of course they did.
Go drink beer and join the Army. So he put me into delayed entry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, did you go to Ranger School before 9/11?
Oh yeah, I went to Ranger School in '97.
Okay.
So 2 years after I joined the military.
So when Ranger School's 3 years, 2 years?
No, it's 60 days.
That's it?
62 days.
Okay.
Yeah, so another misconception. You have Ranger School and the Ranger Regiment. Ranger
Okay.
School is a trade-off course. Anybody in the Army, anybody in the military can go to it.
Okay.
And it's a leadership course. People don't like calling it leadership, but it puts you through 60 days of stressors
Okay.
just to challenge you under different, hunger, sleep deprivation.
That's 60 days.
62 days, I think, is
Okay.
from in processing to graduation.
Okay.
Now, the Ranger Regiment
Yes.
is a selection course that run off of special operations. So you go to selection, you get selected, you're assigned to the 75th Ranger Regiment, subsequently one of the 3 battalions, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd Ranger Battalion.
Okay.
So you don't have to be, when you go to selection, you don't have to be Ranger qualified, but you're expected to within 18 months.
Okay. So how does that work when you pass Ranger School? You go to a regiment. Do you sign on with the Army in general for an extended period of time?
No. Like any school in the military, you're going to have some level of retainability. So
Right.
some of that caliber, you probably need a 12-month retainability
Okay.
before a unit absorbs the cost to send you.
Okay. What was your mindset at that time when you went through it? Were you planning on a career there? Or are you just kind of like not sure?
I think the reason I didn't know anything about the Rangers when I joined the military. I knew about Rangers was briefly on the news from '93 in Somalia.
Okay.
And that was the year I graduated. I think it was the fall after I graduated. So
The movie was out by then, right? Was it Black Hawk Down? Was that a movie? Was that Somalia?
It had been out. It got out when late '90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Late
The public-
'90s,
the
early
public probably-
2000s. But yeah, that's
The public
based off
knows
of
best.
third
Yeah.
Ranger Battalion. Yeah.
Right.
Where was I at? About when I was.
Well, I had asked if you had thought of making a career in the military by
No.
the time.
So I didn't. I didn't know anything about Ranger Regiment. I went to basic training. I think the glamour for me of basic training is everybody thought, my mouth, I always got in trouble. I wasn't good with authority. I was going to get thrown out. I was going to get a dishonorable discharge, ruin my life, blah, blah. I think the appeal to me was to prove everybody wrong.
That was the motivation.
Right. So when I got in there, I started realizing this shit's pretty easy. And I've always been good at not manipulating, but being very personable. So I did my job in basic training. I went through the training, but in the same respect, I gained the respect of the drill sergeants. So that was like kind of their go-to private when it was dumb shit needed to happen. So the drill sergeants that took to me came from Ranger Regiment.
Okay.
And they kept trying to get me and convince me to go to Ranger Regiment. And I agreed. I was like, I'll go. I didn't know anything about it. Send me.
Okay.
And so out of basic, you would go to airborne school and then a selection phase. And they were trying to get my orders changed, which was going to take me to Hawaii first, and then, but they wanted me to go to selection.
Okay.
They couldn't get it. They couldn't change the orders, so I ended up going to Hawaii. But after that, they planted the seed in my head that maybe I want to go to this Ranger Regiment thing. I got to Hawaii, and
you got to Hawaii.
Yeah, I got to Hawaii. That was a security holdover for a little bit. So I think I got Hawaii in early '96 after I graduated basic. And soon after that, I realized that I'm very competitive.
Okay.
So I heard about all these different people doing different competitions, and so I'd made it my goal to be better than them.
So Paradise was not enough of a lure for your competitive nature.
Oh, it was a lure. Trust me. I had a hell of a time in Hawaii, but it was a great place to start for me, my career, because you didn't jump on a train that was moving 1,000 miles an hour. The train was slowly creeping, so you could keep up with it and jump on. So I learned a lot of basic military stuff. It was great climate to get in the greatest shape of your life and get ready for selections, and that's kind of what it did for me.
How long were you in Hawaii?
2 years. A little over 2 years.
Okay, so.
And then out of Hawaii, I went to Ranger school. So
that'd be like 99-ish? Is that like
97 to 90? 97, I went to Ranger school, and 98, I re-enlisted to go to selection in 99 to 3rd Ranger Battalion.
So where were you on 9/11? What do you remember that day?
Squad Exavals in Fort Benning, Georgia. I was in 3rd Ranger Battalion.
So you were like ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah, funny story about it. I didn't even know it. This is going to sound jacked up, but we were doing Squad Exavals. It was September. It's probably about 2 weeks of proving that you're a better squad leader. You had a better squad throughout the whole 3rd Ranger Battalion. So we did that. We did super squad competitions. We did a whole bunch of different things, and we were wrapping up, our last 2 weeks with a marksmanship mod where we just shoot for 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
And my platoon sergeant at the time yelled over and told us to come over to the RSOV and listen to the radio. And I didn't care. I just wanted to go shoot. Like, I didn't care about the news. And he was like, somebody ran into the Twin Towers. Or no, and he didn't say New York. They ran into the Twin Towers, and I was like, okay. And I took off, and I went back shooting with my squad. And then they came over, and they're making a big deal about it. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know where the Twin Towers are. I thought they were like in Europe. I was like, I don't give a shit. Well, then I found out they were in New York City, and they called us back in from the field to start packing. And everything that I was thinking about was we just won this super squad competition, and we were supposed to get like perks when we got back in, and we never got any of the perks. I guess my perk was going to Afghanistan.
So from the time the event of 9/11 happened, how long before you personally were deployed?
I don't remember exactly when we were wheels up, but we flew into an offset location to prepare to jump into Afghanistan. So we actually jumped in October 19th. We jumped into the Kandahar airfield.
President Bush ordered the first military strike against Afghanistan. Was it before you were in there, or was it after you were already in there?
We spearheaded the invasion.
Okay. And that would have been October of
October 19th.
So we took September. Okay, so it was about a month before we took military actions. That sounds about right, going on memory. I think it appeared from a public standpoint that it took about a month before there was a military strike of some kind, because the public was getting a little after the second week. I think
when we jumped in, that was a strike. We jumped in and came back out.
Okay.
We jumped into a DLS, a desert landing strip, and did a flyaway. To get the precious cargo and flush. Okay. So we didn't jump in and stay. We jumped in, secured the airfield, got on a couple helicopters, flew to another location, got who we were looking for, got back on airplanes,
Okay.
and then flew home, or flew back to the offset location.
Again, ballpark dates and so forth. It was a while from that point that we publicly announced that we had set up camp in Afghanistan, right? It was.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know by the time I got back to the staging area, we flew in. It took probably 4 hours, I think, to fly. Jumped in, left before morning.
Mm-hmm.
We flew back just in time for breakfast. And where we were, it couldn't be military operations, offensive military operations. So we had to go behind cheesecloth and hangars and to change and go do that, and went to go eat breakfast. But it's a military grounds. They do military training in this place.
Got it.
But they didn't know who was doing what. But we weren't. They didn't want any offensive operations. The country didn't.
Got it.
So by the time we got back in the hangar, got cleaned up, changed, went to breakfast, it was on CNN, The Jump. So
No shit, really?
I mean, we were watching it. I was sitting there eating my eggs, and I was watching us go across the airfield.
Yeah, that's got to be a weird dynamic of how there's so much media now.
Oh, yeah.
I remember going back to 91 and just watching the war on television.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, in some instances, it was nuts because there was a Marines coming ashore,
Mm-hmm.
and
there's already cameras.
they were standing there. And it was, and I mean, like close.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of a confrontation at that time.
Yeah,
And that
they
was
have,
a
it's
decade
even 10 multiplied by 10 now with the embedded
can't-
cameramen, and all the news stations jump on board.
The last hand-to-hand combat that on a large scale was during the war of 2004, right? The war in Iraq. Cell phones weren't around then, so you didn't have a bunch of citizens of the country running around with cell phones.
Yeah.
We haven't had that type of invasion or that type of, I hate the word occupation, but I mean that invasion of a town. So we have not encountered that yet, right? We've not encountered a combat zone with cameras in every hand
Every hand. No.
that I'm aware of, anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I would say Iraq in 2003.
It was the last time we were. I mean, that was right before that
Because
stuff hit.
Afghanistan, phones weren't very prominent, at least in 2001, and you damn sure didn't find too many Afghans with cell phones. And back then they weren't.
No,
They were flip phones and
right. I wonder if we did that today, even in the third world countries or the Middle East,
Everybody.
they got them.
Mhm.
What kind of complexity does that bring to the table? I mean, maybe none for you folks,
Yeah,
but that's got. The politics of war certainly have changed in that regard.
Oh yeah.
I would think.
I mean, you really think everything we do on target's recorded anyways,
Okay.
whether from the sky or from our helmet cams or.
But that's for the benefit of the war effort. This is the media doing it.
Yeah, right. Well, if we had to disclose it, we would have to disclose it after you declassify it. So, but to just leak,
Yeah.
very easy.
Okay, so help me understand this again. You went in deployment for Afghanistan after 9/11, and then the war on Iraq came in 2003.
Hmm.
Okay, so there was a period of time from 9/11 to the declaration of war
So
there.
we jumped in October of 01. We stayed there till after the New Year. I think I came home January 02. And then went back. So we were on a cycle with 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Ranger Battalion. So back then we were doing 90-day cycles. So we would go over for 90 days. We'd be replaced by 1st Ranger Battalion. 1st Ranger Battalion could be replaced by 2nd. And we would
Got it.
And it was just the vicious circle. So 75th Ranger Regiment has been the only unit in the military to be constantly deployed in every theater
Wow.
since October 19th.
Okay.
From the day we jumped in to the day we pulled out, we have been maintained every theater that the United States has been in, 100% of the time. But yeah, October 11th or October 19th. Came back January. I was back over in that summer of
Got it.
02.
Another 3 months.
Did 90, 100 days there. Came
15,
back
15 total, right?
15 or 16.
Deployments. You lost count, huh? Holy shit.
And then coming back from that, the summer of the second time in Afghanistan, that's when the whole talk about Iraq was kicking in. So I remember my daughter was was going to be born around the time we were going to leave for Iraq. So I had my ex-wife at the time running stairs and like, you're going to have this, I'm going to be here for this child. So you're going to have this baby before I have to leave.
Yeah.
So I had to run in the stadium stairs and so I got to see the birth of my daughter. And then shortly after that, I left and we jumped into Iraq. Well, we flew into Saudi Arabia and staged there for a little bit.
Okay.
Waiting for the right
Logistics
moons to align and make sure
okay.
so we could get in there. And
Okay.
it never really panned out for the plan to jump. We were going to jump into Baghdad International, and never really, the corridor never got open. So we had went off to an offset DLS and did a military, jumped in and seized a military installation. And that's where, ever since, and we stayed boots on the ground in Iraq. So that was February, March of 03.
Did the population, going on your memory, did the population have a lot of pushback for you folks when you went in there? Or did they kind of stay out of the way? I mean, did they...
Yeah, no, they didn't. We were in an isolated DLS, but I can tell you that when we jumped in and we cleared the airfield, it was obstacled. So there was APCs and BRDMs and rocks and basically covering the airfield so nobody could land planes there.
Got it.
So we jumped in, cleared the compound, secured the perimeter, and then kicked back the jump clearing team to actually, like, we dropped in bulldozers and to open this up so we could bring in the rest of the follow-on force, so the rest of the special operations element. So that took till morning. And one of the C-130s was coming in, and it took a couple shots. So we jumped on the motorcycles and ran out to a pump house, a clear pump house, and a house near it. And so the firing came from the pump house, but naturally went over to the house and cleared. There was some old couple.
Really?
And they had no idea. So as I was talking to them, I was like, well, who were the people at the pump house? Who are this? And why is the airfield obstacled? And the lady said it's been obstacled since 1991. So basically they obstacled it in Desert Storm, and we did ended so quick. The war never made it out to Western Iraq.
Yeah.
So I cleared all the shit that somebody should have done in the early 90s.
So when you go out, because of the language difference, so you have interpreters. Is that right? When you, in combat, I mean,
yeah.
So that's. Are they locals generally, or are they people that are within?
They're a mix. Depending on. They're a mix.
Okay.
So you have different levels. There's I think up to level 3, and it really has to do with class security clearance.
Got it.
So if they're American citizens, which some of the local nationals speak better than a lot of American citizens that came from that country, but when we first went over, we brought them over.
Okay.
And then we started gaining a rapport, and then we started getting local nationals that would come in and be translators. I always call them translators. I don't want them interpreting shit. I want them to tell them exactly what I'm saying. So.
Hussein, right? So was the war over by the time he was actually caught, right? He was caught years later.
The war was never over in Iraq.
So
the army,
okay,
the uniformed army of Iraq folded.
Right. Right.
Just like they did but see, Saddam had his special army in the Nebuchadnezzar brigades and his royal, or whatever they call it.
Yeah. Royal Guard or something like
that. Something like that. Republican Guard.
Republican Guard.
So our job when we went was to delete any influence the Republican Guard had on the regular Army Iraqi forces.
Okay.
Because they would surrender in hordes.
Wow.
And they would literally, like, first few shots fired.
Did that surprise you, or did you kind of expect that?
I didn't. No, I wasn't surprised.
Okay.
At all.
Okay.
But I think it was after we depleted the Republican Guard pretty quick. So it was, I think they went from 100%, and we were on the ground for, 2 weeks, and they were down to like 32% or 30%.
Wow.
And they started pushing the surviving members of the Republican Guard out to basically scare the regular Iraqi army into fighting. And so those are the reports we were getting, that they're dispensing all the Republican Guard to the regular army to scare them into fighting, so they would quit surrendering and fight and do Saddam's will.
Right.
But that lasted, a week. And
that was it.
You could tell when you got into a little skirmish with the regular army, as soon as, like, it would go on for 3-5 minutes, and then all of a sudden at one time everybody would quit, because that means at some point you shot one of the last remaining Republican Guard.
Got it.
Now they don't have anybody to run back and tell Saddam.
That broke their will pretty quick, right?
Yeah, they didn't want to fight. I mean, the regular army in Iraq didn't want to fight us.
Okay.
They were kind of elbowed into it.
So Saddam was on the run for a while. I think his sons were killed earlier, Uday or whatever.
Uday and Qusay, yeah.
Yeah, but they were either captured or killed by their own. Were they killed by their own people? Or did we?
No, we killed them.
Okay. And we found Saddam in a ditch or something.
He was in an underground subterranean shelter.
Oh, it was a shelter then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we how did he end up dying?
He was put to death. He got sentenced to death.
I sometimes conflate him with Gaddafi and Osama bin Laden. I keep their demise kind of congregate in my head.
Right.
Gaddafi years prior was actually killed by his own people, I think, right? He was impaled or something.
That was a strike, but he might have been.
Okay. Yeah, I think Reagan tried to strike him in 83 or something,
right?
And then ended up taking out his family or something. I think in memory.
Not too many lack of trying to kill Gaddafi.
Okay.
So, but I think it ended up being a strike, but I could be lying.
Okay. When was your last deployment, roughly speaking, in Iraq? When were you done with the country?
We left Iraq. It would have been 2009, 10.
Okay.
Would have been the last time we. It was slowing down so much. It was we were kind of begging for work. So, and that was around this time frame. So it kind of ebbs and flows. Afghanistan blew up. Mm-hmm. And then, so we kept our special operations footprint in Afghanistan, and in Iraq blew up, and that was kind of like the good war. That was the fun one. Right? You got over there and you had a good time. So we kind of we pulled we left the skeleton crew. Okay. To continue targeting for Saddam, bin Laden in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And then we all went and played whack-a-mole in Iraq for a while. And you ask it, how long it really lasted? A couple weeks, a month.
Got it.
When it was, we were just getting pockets of resistance.
Right.
But then as we can't just go in and smack people and then leave. We have to go in and rebuild every damn road.
Yeah.
Fucking
Halliburton and the rest
put them
of
through school, give them college money.
Just going to ask you about that.
Right. So that's where it tied
Rebuild
into
Iraq, right?
Right. And that's where I differed in my opinion. I say we go over and kill everybody. Everybody needs to be killed. You tell me who needs to die, we go kill them. And we advertise, hey, we're going to kill all these people, knock Saddam out of power, kill everybody in his regime, remove that influence. We just gave you a platter to build your own shit sandwich. You do whatever we will, and we're leaving.
Right.
Right? We got your dictator out. Now you people figure out how to run this country. and leave.
And it would have been a better deterrent, I think, from our national policy to go do that as opposed to go in there.
Yeah, but we can't. I mean,
then we get accused of nation building and everything else.
Militarily, we've never lost anything. Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, military, we have never lost.
The politicians lose it.
Anything. Yeah, I go over and I do my job, and we go over to kill people, and we do a very good job of it. It's everything that goes in between the lines of, I'm not here to build your country. I'm here to kill the people who ruined it.
Well, I don't think us doing that has ever, in terms of going and rebuilding, has ever really benefited our country. We get accused of nation building.
It absolutely does not.
And kind of, when you look back at World War II, I think we actually created this economic power known as Japan.
Right.
Went in there and, rebuilt Japan.
It's a complete opposite, I think, is what we do. Now, me being my job, and it was lucrative for me. Let's stay in Iraq, stay in Afghanistan. I'd stay in there till the day I died because I made more money. I got to do what I joined the Army to do.
Right.
I got to go over and play whack-a-mole for however long.
Right.
I got to lead the nation's finest men into combat, and I'll do that. Whether I agreed, I respected the Taliban. 100%. I mean, I'll go and I'll drink beer with the Taliban. You got to respect your enemy in order to kill them. You can't. If you don't respect them, you're going to lose that war. So,
and see, that's really that. I read some of your prior interviews. You talk a little bit about the definition of a warrior, and when you describe what a warrior is, I believe that 98 to 99% of the civilians, me included, will never understand that concept. It's just it's such a specific mindset that I don't think all of us are capable of getting.
I think we all put our pants on the same. It's something has to happen. I've always said this. Something has to happen to bring that warrior out. Like I think everybody in the United States, everybody in the world is a pro athlete at something.
Okay.
I could have been a pro ping pong player. I just never played fucking ping pong. I could have been the best ping pong player ever. I bet I played football or soccer.
Okay.
I never broke down that road. I could have been a Olympic caliber ice skater.
Javelin thrower.
Right, javelin. I could have threw it across the country, but we never do that. So somewhere in everybody, there's something that we never really tapped into.
Yeah.
So I always say, warrior happens. You don't go into something thinking you're.
They're not made.
They're made through the grit of what you do and what you see, but actions of a warrior. Like people throw the term warrior around loosely a lot now. What defines a warrior? Like I've always said, I'd rather be a good leader than a warrior. Like my memory and my legacy in the military is, man, he was one of the best leaders I had. Warrior just happened. Like if the people can call me a warrior if they want, I don't care what they call me, quite frankly. But I did my job. I did it very well, and the men under me, we.
Okay, so talk about leadership. Then, what is? And again, I'm coming at from a civilian standpoint, right? In my study of leadership, talk about it. Talk about your leadership style, and is there a direct correlation to taking that from the military into corporate America? Possibly. There are other elements that are similar.
So I've actually done leadership LPDs for different corporations, and
I'm not surprised.
And I go speak about different styles of leadership and what a leader is, and or at least what I envision a leader.
Okay.
So I just think everybody knows what it takes to do. Like I think everything I say, everything I always lead, everything I do, whether I'm talking to a room full of CEOs or a room full of privates, everybody knows what I'm about to tell them. It's in the back of their head. Yeah. They just need to hear it.
Okay.
And it needs to come forward so they can apply it at any level. So that's what I talk about, styles of leadership. And there's sugar and salt.
Okay.
No style of leadership's wrong. Right? Because we don't grade technique. There's 100 different ways to skin a cat.
Results.
And, I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong.
Got it.
People react to different types of leadership. So what my type of leadership for my company, platoon, battalion, whatever, might have worked for me, but wouldn't have worked for you, or maybe a legacy leader better than me. It's just the way it was, and that is I was more of a sugar guy. Like I'd rather come into work and have the guys more upset or disappointed if they failed at something than worried about me. Because once you start worrying about repercussions of your actions, you're going to make more mistakes. So they come in, they made a mistake, they paid for it dearly, but it wasn't the fear of it. It was them being more upset. Like we let them down rather than holy shit.
There's
what's
psychology in that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's psychology play.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And you may not think of it like that every day you do it, but that's your thing.
Right.
Some more flies with honey.
Right. Absolutely. You get more out of them. Like if you walk around, you're a dick all the time, and you're mean, and you're yelling, and they're just anytime you walk in a room, they're like, shit, here he comes. The loyalty starts to waver.
Become an adversary, maybe?
Not an adversary, just
Okay.
And I've had leaders like that just all they did was treat you like shit, smoke you, like make you do all kind of dumb shit.
Did you learn from that? I mean,
yeah.
Like this, I'm not going to be like that. My style, my style won't be that way.
Right. I always tell people, take something from every leader you had, whether you use that or you put it in the back of your head, take it and remember it.
Okay.
And so I did. I mean, I had great leaders and I had terrible leaders. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying the terrible leaders are wrong, though.
Yeah.
But they were wrong for me, and they were wrong for my peers and people around me. But they went on to be very successful military leaders.
No doubt. And I've been around through my corporate years, tremendous managers and executives, leaders of companies I've been around with, and the military background, I believe, paid off for them. That they're based on leadership style.
Right.
Especially, I can think of two instances of crises where the company was under a lot of stress, but their leadership was almost stoic, but really on point. And you could tell it was absolutely coming from their military background.
Right.
No question about it.
And it translates. So me coming, 27 years in the military, retiring, coming out in the civilian world, coming to get a job, and you're like, I'm retired. So I was like, I'm going to do something to keep me a little bit of busy. So I got me a part-time job. I won't do anything more than part-time at all. And so I'm the type of person I'm going to go in, do my job, do my part-time job, put my blinders on, and leave. That's what I wanted to do. Did that happen? No. Because I can't. It's hard for me to watch leadership around me or lack thereof.
Okay.
And don't confuse, and I always say this, don't confuse leadership with boss. Mm-hmm. Your bosses, not all bosses are leaders.
No.
Not all leaders are bosses. So anybody can be a leader. Social influence is the biggest thing about leadership.
Okay.
Social influence. I could grow up with you in Coraopolis, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. I didn't know you. I knew the name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Vice versa.
I've always known you. I knew the name. So that's social influence, like the impact the name had. I'm like, oh, I like that. He has a good name behind him, so I'm going to follow that guy. And I always tell the story of Ralph Puckett, who one of my mentors and idols in the military. He just got awarded the Medal of Honor from his actions in Korea and Vietnam. But he went on to be the first commander of the first 8th Army Ranger Unit.
Okay.
Which was the first Ranger unit, modern-day Ranger unit, to be established in Korea. He went in and trained them up, but there was no positions for him. So the Army said, hey, we're going to start this new elite force. We want some volunteers. We're going to bring some people in and train them. He just graduated West Point. He wanted to do something bigger than himself. He decided, I want to go do this. I want to be a Ranger. So he walks into the interview as a lieutenant. All they had was a job for a company commander, which is a captain, which is echelons above him at this point. Mm-hmm. And they basically told him, you're a second lieutenant. we're looking for a company commander. You know, you're not the guy. He's like, let's take this rank off. I'll carry a machine gun. I just want to be part of this. Like, I want to be part of something bigger. And so they had already hired the lieutenants. They already did the interviews and got him. He just came in late. Well, it just so happened that some of the lieutenants that hired before him were his classmates. And they basically found out Ralph Puckett wanted to come be, work in the 8th Army Ranger. And they set aside their peer status to say, I would follow that man.
Yeah.
So they brought Ralph Puckett back to be the company commander because the lieutenant said we would work for a second lieutenant as a company commander. He was that social influence through going through West Point with him and understanding his leadership and understanding his presence. And he went on to be a legend.
His reputation preceded him.
Right.
Because they knew him.
Right. So, legend. He was probably one of my favorite people in the Army.
I'm sure you get this asked a lot, but I want to do it anyways. What are some of the biggest misconceptions, the civvies, us, right, we have with military? What are some of the biggest misconceptions we have right now? And have had throughout your career?
I think biggest for me is we're not all broken. So I think a lot of that's self-inflicted from some of the military.
Okay.
And a lot of that's perceived by the civilian population. But we're not all broken. Like, very few of us are broken.
Mm-hmm. See, I never thought that, but I understand what you're saying.
So, I mean, when I moved back up and I was sitting at a bar or a restaurant, or I don't remember where I was, but I was sitting there and some couple sat next to me and they started talking to me and they said, where you live or where you from? Or I said, I'm moving back home. I just retired or I just moved back home, and after 27 years, I haven't been here in 27 years. And they're like, oh yeah, where you been? And I was like, I lived in Alabama, Georgia, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, what'd you do down there? I was like, I just retired from the military. Oh, how long were you in? I said, yeah, almost 27 years. And they kind of like stopped. And the wife looked at me real, you okay?
Really?
I'm like, well, I could use another beer, but I mean, other than that, I'm fine. And he's like, no, but like, are you okay? Like, do you think I'm going to strip naked and start around shooting everybody in a bar? No, we're not like that.
Yeah.
But I can see where that misconception comes from. And that's self-inflicted for the behavior of a lot of people that come out of the military.
Okay. But the point is, that's a very small percentage. Very small. I think so. Yeah.
I think so. No, I'm sure a lot of military people will come out and call me full of shit, but I mean, I've been around a lot of people for 27 years, and it's a very small percentage of the people I think suffer. I think everybody suffers.
Okay.
But to the point where you could sit there and say we're broken, it's a small percentage.
And we're talking about the readjustment back to civilian life. Is that part of it? I mean, was that not a big thing for you? I mean,
no, I was a civilian every time I was off work.
Right on.
That's the way I look at it.
Got it.
The Army was a job for me. Mm-hmm. It was a job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because I did it 27 years and I put a uniform for 27 years, that uniform came off at the end of the day. Just like if you worked at FedEx, just like if you worked at UPS, just like if you were a mailman, just like if you worked at McDonald's, your shit comes off as soon as you get off work. And mine did too. I went home, played with my kids, went to the bar, had fun, just like any other civilian did. So,
when you received the accommodations you did, okay, because they're impressive, my friend, as a civilian, I'm allowed to say that to you, right? They're impressive to me when I read about them and I understand what they are. I can't imagine, from the little time we spent together, I can imagine that they probably did not have a huge impact on you.
Not at all.
I didn't think so. Were there times you thought about it? Is it easier now since you've retired to reflect back and go, yeah, I fucking did that? I mean, do you ever have those moments? Can you appreciate them for what they were?
Oh, I appreciate them because I'm still breathing.
Uh-huh.
I appreciate them because I'm still standing here today. But I mean, with every, and as I say, with every award, with every accommodation, or minus competitions, minus that, but anything valorous comes loss. So it's somewhere along those lines. I might have got to earn something, but we lost something for that.
Got
so
it.
I mean, I look at it that way. So it's a piece of cloth doesn't mean shit to me.
Okay. Okay, can I ask you about technology and connectivity that was available to soldiers during your time? Meaning, like, when you deployed, did you have a cell phone with you?
No, we had. Oh no, I don't think I actually had a cell phone until 2003, and it was one of them old ones. But when we deployed, we had. You have a package of it's HSD. It carries. It transmits its own internet. So you could have the internet, but
Like
very limited.
satellite based.
Right.
Yeah.
But very limited.
Back then, for sure.
And then we had satellite phones that you had one phone per.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because the era.
Swap around, then run off an external battery. And
Okay.
actually, I believe the military put Iridium back in business. Like, I think Iridium was struggling at one point.
I sold, oh my God. Coincidentally, I worked for a company called PageNet in the 90s.
Yeah.
And we were the only reseller of Iridium. And it flippin' flopped. They sent the geosynchronous satellites up in the late 90s.
Yeah.
But then we couldn't get any subscribers. It was so expensive. And I heard they started falling out of the sky because
Yeah, I don't know.
they went bankrupt or something. But the military saved it. I remember
Well, I
hearing
mean,
that.
we had Iridium phones.
I
and
remember.
then-
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we basically bought unlimited minutes from Iridium, the military, so that people could use the Iridium phone to communicate back home.
By the time you got out, what was changing? Were individual soldiers permitted to have their own cell phones over there? In theater, I guess I should
Yes.
say. They were permitted?
They were, but we weren't. So the regular Army, big military was special operations we were not permitted to have. So we could have cell phones, but they weren't. You couldn't take them in certain areas. We couldn't take cameras, anything that
Because they weren't secure? Is that the biggest issue?
they weren't secure, and you just couldn't take pictures. The pictures was the biggest thing.
Oh, when they became photographic instruments.
So I mean, did it happen? Absolutely. Did we really enforce it? It depends. Depends of who you were and if I liked you.
All right, let me give you a supposition here, or not? I guess not really a supposition, but let me give you a circumstance. Let's say tomorrow we entered Iraq again and did a similar in the year 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Would the soldier more than likely be able to have a cell phone and have regular instant connection with their life back at home?
Yes, they do right now.
So they do. How does that work? I mean, is it any pitfalls for that?
Go to Verizon and get the international package. You call all day.
No, but I mean,
they sell them over. They sell them. They sell cell phones. They sell chips you can put in your cell phone that you can use. Yeah, if you want to pay for it, you want to buy the minutes, you want to buy the service, you can call back home all day long.
Okay, so my question would be, would there be fear that the wrong information coming out of soldiers?
But everything's monitored.
Yeah, but you can't monitor them all, though.
Yeah, they can.
Okay. Yeah, I guess they could.
I mean, you'd be surprised what comes across my desk.
Okay. Because
I know how we did it.
That could be a problem.
I know how we did it, and I know how we did it towards the end with my element.
Okay.
How the rest of the military and how they did, I'm not sure, but I know how, and we were pretty thorough.
Okay.
Like if something was said, there's buzzwords that come up. So once the buzzword hits, then it starts actually recording.
It's another level of headache, though, isn't it?
But it's juvenile. That's what I tell you. It's not worth your career. If you want to talk to your wife, that's fine. Talk to her about the weather and how shitty it is here, and the food sucks, and the women aren't good looking, and it's something like that.
But think about, though, one of the things about what was the modern soldier over the years is the separation from their family. the torture. I mean, you had that even later in the 90s and the early 2000s. So now that's somewhat being eliminated. The connectivity back home, if they're permitted to have their own devices, is
We brought the connectivity closer together, but we always had that with letters. So we could never control what people wrote in letters. It's all under an individual discipline. But you're right. I mean, it makes the living over there a lot easier when you have some touch of reality back home.
Okay. When you were serving, did you ever have moments where you would be out in a deployment and get snippets of the news, whether regardless of what station it was, just the general news here? And did you sometimes think, like, what the American people are being told, that isn't what the fuck's going on over here in this moment? Were there inconsistencies there, or was it disheartening at times when you were hearing things that were against what? I guess my question is, what emotions did you have when you were ingesting American news while you were deployed?
So let me start by saying I didn't really hear much American news. They overseas, they have AFN, which is
Armed Forces, right?
Yeah. So it's basically what they want to. It's a cable network essentially.
Understood.
But it'll have your Army news around the world. They're not going to give you your CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. They're not going to be the biased news stations. Now you could read the internet, you could read social media, you can get shit from friends back home.
Okay.
But I really didn't pay attention, so I can't speak on that. But I can't sit there as one instance when I said, oh, these people think that, but it's actually this.
Okay.
But after looking back, back in that time frame, I didn't care anything about what the news said. I was focused on
the
killing
mission.
bad guys and going home and coming back and doing it again. As my career progressed and I got in different levels of running the operations and worrying about, slander, backlash, and all that stuff, that's when I started paying attention to it.
Okay.
So later on in my career, probably 2016, 15, 16 on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the increase in the sophistication of the technology too. Right. Because of what you went through in the beginning.
And that's where, that's where you got to start worrying more about, is because everything you do is under a microscope. Especially, the longer we stayed in Afghanistan, the longer we stayed in Iraq, one hiccup could stir echoes across the United States in the matter of which opinion we have for the war or where we're at that time.
Yeah. And
who believes we should still be there, who believes we shouldn't be. I always thought we should leave. I thought we should have just went over there, killed who we needed to kill, and leave. And this is unpopular too amongst a lot of people. Everybody hated the Taliban, and and they're these terrible people. But they've been doing this shit for hundreds of years before we were even a country. How am I to tell them they're wrong? Mm-hmm. We do what we do because we decided what we're morally correct doing.
Right.
We do it because we understand what as a society we will accept. That society, believe it or not, doesn't really accept a lot of leeway. They are used to what they're used to.
And isn't it funny that we just choose who we're okay with and who we're not? I mean, because Saudi Arabia's society is...
Bingo. And we have military installations in Saudi Arabia.
And they're friendly.
And they're one of the largest countries who have human rights violations.
100%.
And we supposedly don't play with people with human rights violations, but clearly we do.
But they play nice on the oil front.
Right.
And have.
So like when the pullout came and everybody's like, Taliban, 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 I was like, just pull out and let them go. I knew 2 years into that war the Taliban was going to take over that country again. The only reason it didn't is because we were there. The only reason the Taliban hadn't done sooner is because we stayed there. Had in 2005, somebody's going to come to me like, oh, that wasn't the right year, but early mid 2000s, 2005, 6.
Right.
We always had the Taliban on their heels. At no point did the Taliban ever have an upper hand on us. But there was a time when they were really begging. And the GIRO, the government of Afghanistan, understood that.
Right.
But you have to understand, since the 80s, this was your government. The Taliban was your government. So that was the recognized government. To not give them a place at the table when it all was said and done is ridiculous. And you're
wasn't
never
smart.
And you're but not smart at all, because look what happened where we're at. If had they had a place at the table when they're saying, "Hey, let's figure this out. Let's come to the table." Now that Gyroa had nothing to do with it, right? The government of Afghanistan had nothing to do with the success against the Taliban. It was all us.
Right.
So
No doubt.
when they were like, "Oh, we're winning." Well, you're not winning. We're winning. You might want to sit down with these dudes and talk about how you can live
Yeah,
together.
because you're not going to be there forever.
Right. Because if not, they're going to come in and smack the shit out of you as soon as we leave. And they did. And everybody was upset about it. But if you had spent any time, more than 1 or 2 deployments over there, you knew that was going to happen.
Right.
And I understand it was a big emotional, stressor on everybody that was in the military. Everybody that lost somebody, lost a loved one, or who was over there and lost a friend and watched people, demise over there. But it is what it is. The Taliban was going to take over Afghanistan. The government of Afghanistan, the army, the military, the police force, they were more afraid of the Taliban. Their fear for the Taliban overweighed their want for freedom. That's the bottom line.
Who was it in the 2000s? Was it Musharraf? Was that his name? The Prime Minister of Afghanistan?
It was.
I thought it was Musharraf. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
But when we went in, or when we put in power?
Yeah. Well, no, I think he was the one that was there when we went in. I thought he was, and we retained him.
He got killed.
Ultimately, did he?
Well, the one we wanted in power got killed. Then we put.
Maybe we did. Maybe we put Musharraf in then.
No, we put Karzai.
Oh, Karzai. That's right. I'm thinking of the guy in Pakistan. Maybe that's. I don't. Karzai. That's
Karzai.
right. That's
So
right.
So after we went in and we established what we want to do, there was a list of people that were like, "Hey, we're going to make this guy the president of Afghanistan. He'll be the face."
Right.
I believe he got assassinated.
Right.
And then we had to go in and rescue, kidnap Karzai to make it look like we're going to bring him over. And then we basically pulled him into Pakistan and made him the president of Afghanistan, which he, right, wrong, or indifferent, probably wasn't the right guy for the job.
Did we do a lot of construction building in Afghanistan like we did in Iraq as well?
Oh, yeah.
So like the Halliburton and those type of firms had those contracts. They were in both countries then?
Yes.
They were.
Infrastructure was unreal.
It's profitable.
Schools and
Okay, so we exited Afghanistan in 20, right? It was after Joe Biden became president?
21 we left.
Okay. I'd love to get your unvarnished thoughts on that, if you're willing to share them. I mean, did you because you spent years of your life there, back and forth. I mean,
I redeployed from my last trip over there. I was running the operations plans and training for Afghanistan. That was the CJ3 or 357 Sergeant Major for Afghanistan, and that ended in November of 20.
okay.
And we had since had the Doha peace talks, and we came to an agreement with the Taliban. Taliban will not attack any American or coalition force. They could still, but the Taliban kept smacking the ANA, AMP, Gyroa. But that wasn't part of the agreement. So, but from the time, so really the original peace talks happened. By the time they flew back from Doha, the Taliban already blew up, did a VBIED and killed an American soldier, and I believe a Georgian civilian.
Okay.
And we wreaked havoc on them for 2 weeks. Trump was like, let them have it. Like, this is bullshit. So we did. Then the Taliban came back and said, look, you got to give us a minute. We let everybody know up here at the top, it takes a minute to get it down to the pipe swingers.
Okay.
And that's what, and after it trickled down, they did nothing. I mean, we were walking down the streets in Kabul, and they weren't going to do anything to us because they knew the writing was on the wall. If they want to take power and they want to make it in a timely manner, We have to leave. So they're going to sit there and they're going to bide their time and wait for us to leave. And that's kind of hard. It's good in one step to say, hey, we're going to leave here. But they also know they can just sit back and wait. As soon as we leave, this is what's going to happen. They're going to take over.
It was so chaotic, though.
It was. The pullout had a sound plan. There was a sound plan in place.
What happened? As far as you can tell.
A different administration came in and checked.
That's what it was.
And it's I don't blame everything on the administration. I blame the military advisors. I blame those are the people those are your subject matter experts. Those are the ones that should have said, it's a bad move to shut down Bagram. Leave Bagram open. We've had it since 2001. That's a bigger airfield. We can get more heavies in there, get more people in and out of there.
So it's a political move then. We wanted every piece of American blood out of that country.
I don't know if it was political as much as uninformed. I really don't know. I don't know the thought process behind it, and I'm not going to. But there was a lot of wrong done.
It seemed like there was a deadline set, whether it was done in a political.
The deadline was done already fucked that up. We were the Taliban is the only one that upheld their end of the deal from the Doha peace agreement.
Okay.
We shattered it.
Okay.
Like we were supposed to be out prior to. I'd be lying if I told you a date, but we did not meet that date miserably.
Okay.
And I knew we weren't, just based on we hadn't even started moving.
Got it.
I don't know why. And they were very tolerant. Taliban was very tolerant with that. They could have turned around and did a spring offensive on us. They could have done whatever they wanted. But, again, if you want something bigger, you have to kind of wait for that thing to come. And that's what they did.
What's your gut tell you now that they have control of that country? What are we in for? Nothing.
They're irrelevant. They're not relevant. The Taliban does not have global reach.
Okay.
People don't understand that. The Taliban had nothing to do with 9/11.
Well, so they were fostering.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, they gave a place. They gave them a place to hide.
It's
right?
customary.
Basically, it. Okay.
It don't matter. It's customary. That's their religion. That's their custom. If you showed up at somebody's house in Coriolis and tried to sleep over, they'd beat you with a broom off their porch. But you do that in Afghanistan, they're going to put you in a guest house. It's just customary.
Okay.
So, but they had nothing to do with 9/11.
So they were kind of the placeholders for bin Laden. That's just where he was.
Yeah, I mean, bin Laden is a Saudi-born. He didn't give a shit about Afghanistan. He could have went anywhere.
That's just where he happened to be.
And he had plenty of security. He didn't need the Taliban. Taliban and Al-Qaeda didn't even get along. But it was just, he was in Afghanistan at the time.
Okay, talk about Al-Qaeda for a second. What's their state as of?
They're irrelevant. At this point, they're as irrelevant as the Taliban.
Really?
Yeah, they're broken.
Okay.
And that's why I told everybody when we were pulling out, they thought this was, our Vietnam. This was, Vietnam. We didn't lose Vietnam.
Nope.
We did not lose Vietnam.
No.
We did everything. The military did not lose Vietnam. And that's what people have to understand. What you do in the military.
My father used to tell me that. He said exactly what you said. He always said that to me.
We won that. The government lost. And that's where we have to find that happy medium and say, how long is right before it gets too much? Like Iraq, how long? We had 2 months. We could have been in there 2 months, got the regime done, got them out of there. Whatever time we got Saddam, I don't know how long it was. It was years. But, after Saddam was done, we got him out. We knew we'd get Saddam. He wasn't going to leave Iraq.
Right.
We got him. Now we should leave. Here's your shit sandwich. Eat it or, fix it. But we didn't. And that forced the foreign fighters over. So we weren't fighting, a uniformed army. We were fighting foreign fighters. We were fighting Chechens and Uzbeks and, Syrians and everybody else. We weren't fighting all Iraqi people over there. We were fighting extremism. And that's to people that say, hey, we don't want infidels in our country. And that's what it boiled down to. So that's where we didn't lose that war. We didn't lose any of them. And that's what people have to understand is, we won the war. We did what we needed to do. We diminished Al-Qaeda did nothing.
Right.
So when you look at the Afghan war, jumping in Afghanistan, fighting in Afghanistan, we destroyed Al-Qaeda. Very small.
You completed the mission, right?
Huh?
You completed the mission.
Right. But it turned into, now we outstayed our welcome with the Taliban. Because I'll tell you right now, we paid some Taliban leaders for compounds we were using to fight the Al-Qaeda. Very prominent Taliban leaders. Very prominent.
Wow.
Now, did they play mom against that? Absolutely. Like one Taliban, they used us as a middleman to get rid of their competition.
Sure.
So, if we're using a compound over here, he'd shoot us at his own compound and blame it on the other guy. So we go over and kill this guy. Now we just eliminated his competition. I mean, they're geniuses in that respect. But we played right along.
It sounds like a clusterfuck, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, we
out.
knew what they were doing, but it wasn't the Taliban. And the Taliban finally just started saying, time to get out. We don't want you in our country. They didn't want the Russians in the country.
Right.
They didn't want us in their country.
They proved that, decades prior.
Right. And I mean, what did we do in the 80s? We made the Taliban successful.
Of course we did.
So the pullout, we did everything we needed to do militarily up to the pullout. We screwed the pullout.
The narrative that we left all these high-tech weapons and all this stuff for the
bullshit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Was that basically a narrative that
was a bullshit statement that
was basically fed to the public?
They showed all these pictures of all this equipment, guns, tanks, helicopters, whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. That was given to the government of Afghanistan. That was we gave that to them. We took that out of our inventory and assigned it to the Afghan National Army.
Why wasn't that conveyed right to the public?
Because they only want they want so much strife between two parties. That's what they want. They don't want people to get along. If I'm on an airplane, I want my fucking pilot to be successful. So I'm going to do everything.
Of course.
Why would I want him to be a failure at a pilot? That'll be the last time I'm on a plane or anybody on a plane. So, but this country has morphed into, I'd rather see somebody fail for an agenda.
Let's talk about that, because I've been really wanting to have this conversation with you. So we look out today, in your perspective of life is certainly different based on our backgrounds. I see the world getting ultra polarized. And when I mean polarization, Colin, I mean like people will die on the fucking hill for their belief, even when they've been shown you're wrong. Can you have a little humility, maybe adjust your thought process? They will die on that hill, and even sometimes over the most inconsequential shit.
Absolutely. I mean,
how did this happen?
I can tell them factually that I could say I saw it with my own two eyes. That's not true what they're saying. This is it. For example, we left, all the military, we left equipment behind for the Taliban. We did not leave that equipment behind. That was Afghan National Army equipment, Afghan National Police equipment.
Okay.
They folded. Mm-hmm. That was kind of we understood. If they folded, the Taliban was going to get that. They have been doing it since the dawn of time, since we jumped in there. Well, since we started training the Afghan National Army, Afghan National Police Special.
Okay.
They would go to a checkpoint. People think checkpoint's 1 or 2 people. Like when you hear a checkpoint got overrun in Afghanistan, it's not. It's 30 people. And there'll be a truck full of Taliban, 5 people saying, get out of the checkpoint and leave your shit. And they're like, can you give us 5 minutes to grab clothes? No, get out now. And they go in and take over that checkpoint. Not around fire. 30 Afghan National Army will walk away from a checkpoint against 5 Taliban.
Wow.
It's because they're more afraid of the Taliban than they want freedom.
Damn, okay.
And it was a job to them. They got paid a little bit of money, and they were hoping they never had to fight. And then now the Taliban just gained trucks. They just gained guns. They just gained that. So it's always been happening. We didn't leave Taliban shit. The Afghanistan failed. Mm-hmm. The narrative that we left American citizens behind, bullshit. Mm-hmm. We did not. Mm-hmm. If there is any American citizen at our level that was left behind, it was because they decided to stay there. They did not get left. The ones that are the overwhelming number that they're referring to are as dual citizenship Afghans. people that Afghan civilians that also held a U.S. civilianship that decided to leave the U.S. and move back to Afghanistan.
Got it.
Because of money and greed, and we're going to pay them, right? That's who they're referring to, not me and you.
Got it.
At all. The idea that the Taliban was running around hanging people from helicopters. Absolutely, it's just the narrative how the media does it. If they'd have showed that same video, 3 minutes prior, they'd have shown that was actually a Taliban soldier, if you would, hanging a Taliban flag on a provincial capital in Kandahar.
No shit.
It was not anybody hanging from a helicopter. He was in a harness. He was hanging a flag on top of the provincial capital.
Holy shit.
So we left military working dogs over there.
Wow.
And they show a picture of all these kennels, and we left all these military working dogs. Bullshit.
It's a narrative. It's a fake narrative.
It's a fake narrative. They were stray dogs that rather than killing them, there was some lady that was taking them in Kabul in a kennel. And when the pullout started, she had brought all that shit back and tried to have us get them on the plane. Well, I can't even get everybody on the plane. I'm not putting dogs.
Right.
For one, I can't even go to Hawaii you can't fly to Hawaii to go live there with your dog without being in quarantine for 17 years. I'm not damn sure not bringing 30 Afghan dogs on a plane back to the United States.
Right.
So it's a narrative. And it depends on what side, which way you lean, and who you want to hate,
and who's
who
in
you
power, and who's trying to tear down.
But those are facts. I tell people those are 100% facts. They still don't believe it. They still have such a monocular way to look at something that they don't give a shit what's over here. They just want to be. This is how I look at it.
What a weird world.
It is. I mean, and I can't say I'm middle of the road. But I would say
you're like you're a right-leaning general moderate.
Right.
That's kind of I think that's where I find myself.
Right. But I have I look at both sides of the coin.
Well, any reasonable citizen should.
Right. And it's not losing friendships over, but it's come to that. It's not there's families that don't talk through this shit, and it's basically that they're doing it. Media, the social media, mainstream media.
Do you think that's it, though? Do you think social media is the main culprit in terms of why we're so polarized?
Social media is not the main culprit. Mainstream media is the main culprit.
Okay.
And pushing agendas.
Okay.
But social media now just gets it out to the masses faster.
Mm-hmm. There's so much of social media, though, in the way that we use it. Often it's just not real. There's more bullshit there than anywhere.
As soon as I post, I could post some. I could sit and post. I'm not gonna.
Right.
I could say something like, Philly won the, KC stripped of Super Bowl due to bad call. Philly awarded the Super Bowl win. I could put that, make it look like a headline, and I guarantee tens of thousands of people will believe that shit if it's spread. Because they won't do their own research. Their nose doesn't get out of social media to the point where they're going to believe that rather than fact check and do their own research on something. They want to trust social media.
Let me ask you that. Taking exactly what you just said, doesn't that actually sound like the truth doesn't really matter to us much anymore?
No. The facts don't matter. The feelings matter.
Right.
So right now it's feelings over facts.
It's been that way for a couple of years.
Feelings over facts. It's a sad state we're in. It really is.
You couldn't imagine a world like 20 years ago. You could, if somebody could paint a picture for you, maybe in 5 minutes, of what the current world looks like, and they projected this to you in 2003, and this is say in 2023, 20 years from now, this is the things that's going to be happening, big moments. And this is how we're going to interact with each other. And this is how fucked up things are. And they explain that to you in 5 minutes. Would you actually believe that the world you're moving into is going to look like that?
No. But a large handful of people would. And they're going to start digressing it to that already. All you got to do is plant a seed to some people, and they're going to grow it. They're going to water it, and they're going to grow it. And that's what mainstream media is doing. And that's what... Turn the news off. Turn the news off. If you want to be a journalist, stick to facts. Strictly facts, not what your opinion
They're
is.
hard to find nowadays. The outlets that actually can give that to you. I used to think NPR was a place to go until I realized right away that's as liberal as it comes.
Nobody.
Yeah, you almost have to take pieces from both sides and then see which the least of the two lies. And
well, that's why I said there's three sides to every story.
His, hers, and the case.
And you got to figure that out.
Yeah, it's just frustrating as shit. It's such an unsophisticated way of living. You know, I mean,
it's tearing this country apart. Is what it's doing. It's
100%.
We're going backwards. Mm-hmm. We're actually going backwards.
Did you see the movie Idiocracy?
No, I know what you're doing, but I did not see it.
I have not watched the entire movie, but I watched enough of it. And I should go back and watch it. But this is like 15, 16 years ahead of its time. That movie should be written today.
Right.
But it predicted exactly where we've headed.
We're living in, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such a fascinating time when you were in the service because it was right at the beginning of this crazy technological push, where, especially in communications, you just missed it. You probably got out at the right time,
right? From
that bullshit, you know. Because I can't imagine. I mean, social media for enlisted men and women. Like, are there restrictions? Is that stuff being monitored?
Oh yeah.
Do they tell them it's being monitored?
There's policy letter now in the military. Well, there's a policy letter for us, but I think that Sergeant Major of the Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army had put out that you could. There's definitely UCMG actions for social media. Watch what you put on social media.
I can think of the one place where feelings don't matter because of the required order, and that's the military, right? Because you have to.
That's a misconception too.
Well, it's starting to be, right?
That's another big civilian misconception about the military.
Oh, help me understand that.
You don't join the military to get. This isn't back, when our parents and grandparents were like, say, go to war, go to jail, go to military, or go to jail,
The draft, right?
Right. Or just they forced you into service because you were a
hoodlum,
vagrant, right? You're breaking the law left and right. We're going to go get you straight by sending you to the military. That's not how that works.
That don't work.
A lot of people that I know have probably came into the military straight as an arrow and got out just as fucked up as anybody could imagine.
Okay.
And without seeing combat.
Okay.
It's not because of, a lot of people that go into the military. There was a kid I went to basic with the kid. Then I went to Hawaii for a couple of years, and then I since linked up with him. He was in 3rd Ranger Battalion.
Okay.
This kid was like straight laced and basic, didn't cuss, didn't do anything. This is still, late 90s.
Right.
I get moved over to the Ranger Regiment in the late 90s, and he's smoking, cussing, drinking. Hadn't drank a drop of fucking liquor his entire life.
Right.
So for you to sit there and for the society to think that, one, the military is going to straighten you out, that it's complete fucking opposite.
Yeah.
Like you either have to want to be in the military because there's plenty of drugs, there's plenty of alcohol, there's plenty of tobacco, there's plenty of the devil's magic that goes on in the military, and that other people will, your cliques will, it's easier to do, and ruin your life, ruin your career. So that's a misconception. If you think that your son's
it's not reform school.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Is it changing? Because I get the vibe that there's, and I hate the word, but man, there's like a woke agenda. At least the public's being told, anyways, that there's somewhat of a woke agenda seeping into certain elements of the military. Do you believe that's true?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I'm trying to put this. So, back in 2014, when I left the Ranger Regiment and I went out and I ran the operations for the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade, They wanted to put females through Ranger School. So this is back on the table. Females through Ranger School. Let's give females the opportunity to go to Ranger School. Anybody that went to Ranger School, like I knew in 97, anybody can pass Ranger School. It's not hard, it sucks. Like if you can deal with not sleeping, not eating, walking, 3 days straight, whatever. The physical aspect, that mental aspect of it, the deprivation aspect of it, you can deal with that mentally and stay healthy, you're going to pass.
Okay.
And that's the secret, I think, that people don't want to, like, once you graduate Ranger School, you're like, it sucked, but it wasn't as bad. Like, I went into it thinking I was going to lose both legs. I was going to be fucking mentally challenged the rest of my life. But, it didn't. It came out and I was like, I did it. It wasn't as bad as I thought. Yes, it sucked at the time. But as you reflect, you're like, anybody can do that. Now, fast forward to 2014, every year up until that point, the chief of staff would always say, hey, we're going to open it up to females. Come up with a course of action. What would that look like? And then it would fizzle out. Before you could only go to Ranger School if you were combat arms, 11, 12, or 13 series combat arms.
Okay.
The only element that could go to Ranger School and be a cook and be, a fire support, or not fire support, but a mechanic, it was the Ranger Regiment. That was the only unit in the Army. Special Operations was the only unit in the Army that could go to Ranger School without being a combat arms MOS.
All right.
I'm going to say mid-late 90s, they opened it up and said they opened up the MOS as more who could attend. And now it's anybody can attend. So their thought process, let's give females the same opportunity. They're not in combat arms. But it always got pushed to the side. Wasn't enough interest on the female side. So here comes 2014 or whatever year, I think 14, comes back down my pipe. Hey, come up with a way we got to put females into the Ranger School. Okay. So I dust off the 16, binders before that, and I look at the plans that they had put in place before that and said, let's figure this out. Because it's prison sex. It's going to happen. We just got to figure out how bad it's going to hurt. And that's what we did. We put a plan together, and did I agree with it? Absolutely not. I did not think that there was a benefit of having females go to Ranger School, but I didn't care. That's not my job to agree or disagree. It's my job to execute whatever I'm told.
Right.
And as long as I keep it where the standards remain the same, and they pass the same way I did, 30 years ago, or the same way, your grandchild does 30 years from now, then so be it. But everybody wanted their hands in the pot, so everybody decided that, the standard was going to change when they found out. We were going to relax the standards. We were going to fall apart, and females, blah, blah, blah. So I took a big hit, especially on social media about that, females going to Ranger School. They thought I left Ranger Regiment. I was a go-to guy. I was doing anything for my career. If anybody knew me, I really don't give a shit about my career. I don't give a shit what people think about me. And I damn sure I'm not going to do something that jeopardizes my morality for the career just to get a piece of cloth for some female. I don't give a shit. Enough about that. But I was one of the loudest voices disagreeing with it. But I didn't, nobody's in the office or in the hall when I'm discussing why we shouldn't be doing this.
Okay.
All they see is these females going through. Well, now, like I said, fast forward 2014, who was the number one UFC fighter in the world, pound for pound? It was fucking Ronda Rousey.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or whatever. It's right around that time.
Yep.
So you're one of the greatest athletes as a female. CrossFit's like taking off. Females are crushing everything in every aspect of the world. So, fuck it. Let's give them a chance. It's Ranger School. It's a piece of cloth. It's a school.
Right.
It's not combat. It's a school.
Right.
No, I think they went about it wrong. I think they put the cart in front of the horse. I think if they were going to do it and they were going to get credibility for it, they should have put the females into combat arms, let them go through OSUT training, through infantry training, any pathway that a male went through.
Okay.
Like if they're going to go to, let them go to basic training, infantry basic training, let them go through infantry, AIT, which is OSIT.
Yeah.
On through, or basic training and infantry AIT, airborne school, let them take that same pipeline anybody else did.
Okay.
And then they go to infantry unit, they prove themselves, or any unit prove themselves, and then they can go to Ranger school. They didn't do that. They kind of put the cart in front of the horse and put them straight to Ranger school.
But two graduated that year, right? Was that right?
Three. Three graduated. Two in one class, and then later on, a 34-year-old lady from the.
Okay.
And so they went in there, and I got it to where the standard didn't change. I assure you.
I believe
not
it.
100, not at all. To the point where I wanted them to shave their head, like that. But when you look at it, you really didn't have to shave your head. I didn't have to shave my head 30 years ago to go to Ranger school. But what we do is we shave your head, take your rank, we break you down, we make sure nobody's better than nobody. We all look the same. We all have the same shit on our chest. We're nothing. And we break you down, we build you up into a Ranger. And that's what the school's supposed to do. And when it got to the point, I would go out to certain aspects of the training, and I wouldn't even be able to tell the females from the males. They went for the short hair stand, but you shave your head, right? 3 days from now, you got to shave it again. Right. So everybody looks the same anyway. So whether they have the short hair standard, or they buzz it, or they quarter inch, or whether it's just slicked, it doesn't matter in 2 days.
Yeah.
So the hair standard was irrelevant. My point is, I didn't know anybody different. That was a road march. Coming, I wouldn't know if it was a male or female. I would only know when they called off the roster number, and I'm like, oh, that was a female coming in first place.
Got it. Impressive.
So what if one of the females that graduated won the road march against all the males?
Damn.
And now we're sitting there saying they don't deserve it, and they bullshit.
Right.
So in that aspect, I don't give what isn't earned, but I'm not going to take what's deserved. Mm-hmm. And they deserve it. They passed. Mm-hmm. They passed, and I know in my heart of hearts it was 100%.
Mm-hmm. Standard
was the same. If not, that class was harder than my class.
But fast forward from 14-ish to now, like let me just put it this way: has post-2020 wokeness, it's pretty extreme now, is that starting to seep in?
So the female aspect of it, going into combat arms, came at the right time, because the war is dying down. Mm-hmm. Let's make this decision now. We're not putting all these females in these infantry units or go to war units. Females have been going and deploying. And I hate to use the word front line, because there's female truck drivers, there's female, MPs and security, and they've always been out there, but not in the numbers of what it would be if they were in the combat arms.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think the time came right where it was dying down, so we can make this happen. We can make this change happen without society seeing all these females coming back, in body bags, and coming back and amputees, or because no matter what, they're still mothers. They're still
absolutely
the future of this country, of the world. Like, without a female,
100%,
we can't make more Rangers. So.
It's just that's a maneuver, man. That was an administration maneuver for sure.
And that's my opinion. That's only my opinion.
Right.
But the two females that graduated are awesome.
Yep, I believe it.
Oh man, but they weren't your run-of-the-mill soldiers either. They were West Point graduates. One was a MP, physically an animal. The other was a Apache pilot, very successful already in their career fields, that decided that, hey, we want to try this, and they did, and they did it very good, very expertly. Now that's the female aspect of it.
Right.
Everything else, though, when you look at the wokeness and the repeal of the don't ask, don't tell, that's. Nobody gave a shit. Mm-hmm. Nobody gives a shit what you do. I mean, you're never going to stop bigotry. You're never going to stop
Right.
hate at some level. Somebody always going to have that, but the vast majority isn't. But that goes around the entire surface. That goes both sides coming at you and going away from you. The repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell is irrelevant to me because it didn't matter what you did when bullets are flying. It doesn't matter what you do when we're training, you're left or right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. And I think at some point, one of the I'm not going to say what that. There's some unit in the Army in a special operations realm. This was back in the 90s, where a very successful kid got out, and he was doing some interview in the paper. I don't remember what it was, but it come out that he was gay. Everybody knew he was gay. Everybody did,
of course,
and nobody gave a shit.
Yeah, right.
But then you could see where the interview was trying to push him to say you were chastised, you were outcasted, and he was like, no, I wasn't. He goes, I was gay. I couldn't be openly gay, but I was gay, and everybody knew it. And the most alpha male dominant units in the military, and nobody gave a shit. And that was like his kind of testimonial, say, it doesn't matter what you do in your life, as long as you do your job and you treat people with respect, it's going to go a long way. And
the world should run like that, right? Overall, the whole entire world should run that way.
It should. It should. It's a novel idea.
The feelings thing is funny because you said we're living in our feelings now, or just the world's more about feelings and facts, and you're so right, I believe. But that feelings can't overrun the military. I mean, it can't. It's not feelings first in the military. It can't be.
You're right, but it's there.
Well, in terms of like order, when I see a young person. Let's say the teens or early 20s, and I see the belligerence to law authority, to elders maybe living on their block, let alone law enforcement and so forth. I see that's a proliferation where it just seems like we're constantly disrespecting authority. That can't happen in the military. Without the order, there is no military, right? Am I right? Am I saying this right?
It can't have. It happens.
It can't be allowed to happen and continue, right? 'Cause, I mean,
it's in some aspect. In some aspects, the animal runs the zoo.
In the military,
some aspects,
huh? Okay.
And there's a lot of times and I saw it as like you grow on, but sometimes a private or lower enlisted or lower, isn't worth your career. And it's...
okay.
So it's...
Okay. In that regard,
they can do, say, it gets to the point where it was probably acceptable 20 years ago that now you're just going to throw away 18 years of your military career.
It's not worth it.
Right. And I think people at my generation, maybe a little younger, it's a learning curve. It's a leadership challenge. It's something you got to figure out how you're going to deal with this new generation, this new society, and how to deal with stuff like that. And that leadership style, sugar versus salt. Like you can't go in there and have the same leadership style for everybody in every organization. But it's definitely, there's definitely the animals running the zoo in some aspects.
So I would never thought that, but now that you explain it that way, yeah, in terms of what their superiors have at stake, if they push back or try to correct something, it might not be worth it to them.
Right.
Then,
and what they would say is probably their vision of how to deal with it. So that curve had to come in pretty steep in the last few years with the military.
Okay, I wouldn't be surprised by that. Yeah, the timing of all that.
Right.
For sure. Did you have fun, man?
I'm having a great time. It's great.
I just hope I want to wrap this up, but I want to make sure I phrase this right. I get a lot of guests on here, and when we talk about, or even on our panel shows, we talk about the state of 2023 and a lot of pessimism. Like people see that society's scary to them, or it's broken, or they see crime, oftentimes exaggerated in the media. I think, but there's a lot of pessimism. Do you look at America still with the same reverence and love for what this country was founded on and stands for, or has it changed a little bit for you over the years of your service and since you've been out?
No. I still look at that as saying it's the people that run the country. It's the people that you look different.
Okay.
The country itself is always going to be the country itself. You're always going to have pride in the flag, pride in the country. What I don't have pride in is the people they put in positions that run this country. That's the issue. It's not the country. It's the people that are running it. And it goes on both sets. Like, I'm not going to cast shade on, one side or the other side. We can't do anything fucking together. So whether if you're a Trump supporter and you're looking at what Trump did and you think that he did X, Y, and Z, well, he probably could have done A, B, C, D, E, F, G to go with that had he not been fighting every step of the way. Or like go back to Bush. Like, everybody's mad about Iraq. Was it right or wrong? Who cares? Gave me a career. That's why I joined the military. Biden's administration. You can't really say much about it. I mean, it's like a black hole with anything he does or says. But do I want him to fail? Fuck no.
Of course not. I think more Americans need to get that perspective.
And that's where 350 million people in this country, and we fucking put certain people up for vote. It's ridiculous. Like, what the fuck? Put somebody better there. If we really care, and it's not about politicizing something or pushing agendas, put the fucking best person up. And it could be the fucking dude that works down the Unimart. It doesn't need to be a career politician to run this country at all. You have advisors at every level. You have to have a level head, sound mind, and understand what's best for this country. Yeah. Trump, I thought at the time, was good for the country because he's a businessman and he saw Afghanistan and the war that we're doing as a business. And he said, look, we're not fucking making money. We're losing money. And I thought he was the right guy to say, hey, we're going to pull out. He did. He basically had the plan to pull out of Afghanistan. Very sound plan, I might add, because don't forget I was there. So it's worked. If they could just work together to make something right, like instead of fucking trying to hide shit under different bills or doing this, like, we're broke as a country, big time, with the people, but not the country itself. So I don't look at it any different. Just work together.
Why don't we have more military leaders seeking public office? We don't have a lot on the national prestige level, on the bigger seats.
I mean, even if who the fuck want to now at this point?
That's good.
It's a
good answer.
If I sat there and whatever party I decided to run for, I already know you're automatically going to get shit on by the other one.
Yeah, half the country already hates you.
Right. It doesn't matter if I do 10 good things. They're only going to highlight the bad things. It's like they always say, like, one aw shit will fuck up 10 data boys. So you can do 10 good things. How many times do you sit there and tell people at work, hey, you don't talk to them until they fuck up? And you're like, hey, you fucked this up. What's wrong with you? Do you go around and tell them good job daily, or do you tell them thank you daily? You only acknowledge something when it's fucked up.
Good point.
So maybe we should start saying, hey, good job. Thank you for what you did today, rather than, holy fuck, what, you screwed that entire thing up. You brought the wrong order, da-da-da. That's what society's used to right now,
right,
of getting scolded rather than praised.
It's a good point, Colin. That's a good point. That's a good point.
And until we realize, we're going to take this ship to the bottom of the fucking ocean if we don't figure it out.
You optimistic or pessimistic now?
I'm optimistic because I don't care. Because I worry in my world. I worry about my world. You can only put your sphere of influence, right, and affect that.
That's a good lesson.
The rheostat model, the rheostat.
Yeah.
Your
thermostat. Yeah.
You have 3 of them. You can't put all of them on fucking 100. You got to understand where you can put each one to make it realistic. You can only have so many things you can make successful.
Exactly right.
Only bite off what you can fix or chew. Don't try to take too much. You're going to fail at all of them. Be successful at 3 things rather than be fucked up at 10. So
one major lesson you learned from your service, amongst probably a shit ton of them, but one major lesson you learned, and I'll cover it by this way, but in terms of dealing with other people.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Didn't expect that.
Don't judge. Yeah. Greatness comes in all shapes and sizes.
All packages.
All packages. I've seen people where you just look at him and you're like, this guy's going to be just a disaster. And he's the next fucking Audie Murphy. You know, he's the next Ralph Puckett. He's the next, greatest thing ever. But nobody would have gave him that shake. Nobody just looking at him said, never, greatness comes everywhere. Don't shit him to the side because he doesn't look the part.
All right, you're a Pitt fan. We're gonna wrap this up. Is Kenny Pickett the man or what?
Yeah,
for the Steelers. You think?
I think we threw him in the fire. I think we threw him in the fire a little bit early. I look at it this way. This was a rebuilding year. I think we got Trubisky, and we needed Trubisky at the time, and we still needed to go for Pickett to be the franchise, the face of the franchise. But like I said, let Trubisky run this. Figure out what the team wants to do. Let Pickett have a year to watch, learn.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
It should have. Let Trubisky take the ship down. and we knew it was. I mean, we end up picking it up at the end of the season, but and that's because I think the team started to mold a little bit. The talent we have is ridiculous. We have amazing talent. But when you have amazing individual talent and they can't bring it together as a team, and I think we figured that out later on this season. And
I think so.
We just came up a little short. We played the way we did at the end of the season and the beginning of the season. We'd have had that bad call in the Super Bowl.
Agreed. I would like to have seen that. You and I are going to go to Steeler game, buddy. That's how I'm making it. Yeah, for sure.
Tell me when. I'll get it.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate this, bud.
I appreciate having you.
I would love for you to come back and love for you to be on some panel shows here, too.
I would love that, too.
All right. I'm going to hold you to that. All right.
I live here, buddy. You tell me when.
Right down the road.
That's it.
All right, friends. We're out. Call him Bully.